Hello guys. Today I'm kind of cheating here. For this album reviews, man, I gotta do another run at these at some point. A lot of my album stuff is back at a different place. My parents, so I haven't been able to I can't really do a traditional review of stuff. So I'm doing this top five thing. I was going to do top 10, and I looked through because I'm basing it on my CD collection. What I'm looking through mostly because that's what I just grew up listening to was through the CDs, and can kind of continued a little bit. Even though I do have some things on vinyl cassette that I don't have on CD. I didn't really listen to those growing up. So pretty much top five. I'll have some honorable mentions, of course. So pretty much it's gonna be very loose. There's not gonna be research or anything built into it. It's just based on this is my personal favorite, and it's based on what I have listened to. So this isn't top five albums of all time, because that'd be a different thing. This is just my personal favorite of albums that I have listened to. Okay, I could, because here's the thing. It was tricky, but another thing too is I own a lot of greatest hits compilations, and I don't count those towards this because they're not really. It's a collection more than an album, because if anything can be great if you put all the best songs in one thing, but to construct an album, it's a gamble because you don't know which song's gonna pay off and which isn't. So it's kind of a different thing in that regard. Um, but yeah, and also I'm not gonna do a lot of background stuff to it because some of these albums I might have talked about in the past, and there's some I may talk about in the future. So gonna kind of keep it straight. So this is just gonna be kind of a free flow thing. First honorable mentions. I have a few of them. One is Van Halen 5150. Another rule too is that one album per group per artist. So the artist is one album per artist. So pretty much the whole list isn't gonna be like three of them are gonna be from the same artist or something. It's gonna be one artist per album. So there's gonna be some tough choices were made for this one. Van Halen's 5150 is an honorable mention. And that's the thing, like some of the pot, and this is based on what I own. Of course, if I own like something like 1984 or something, or the sales debut, they may be up there. But I don't own them, so I didn't grow up listening to them, so they wouldn't be in this thing. This is based on what I owned. 5150 is an honorable mention. Man, this had some killer songs like Dreams and freaking Dreams was a big one. I always love that's one of my favorite like songs. Period. Let me do some looking here. Like Can't This Be Love, Love Walks In, those ones as well. The names were escaping me for a bit. It's an honorable mention because, to be honest, even though I love this album, I wouldn't say it's like my absolute favorite album of theirs. It probably would be something I haven't listened to yet. And here's the thing, it's not an album I play a ton of straight through all the time. Some of my favorite albums are albums I listen to a lot with a lot of the tracks. That's kind of some of my favorites, like just nonstop, just listen through. And this wasn't one of them, but there's a lot of big songs for it. And I love Sammy Hagar Van Halen. I do. I love David Lee Roth, but I think Sammy Hagar Van Halen, I feel like on a technical level, I feel like it was a little bit more polished, but both were equally good. But yeah, good album. Another honorable mention, Poison's Open Up and Say Ah. I grew up loving old school rock, but like 80s glam metal or whatever. I mean, I loved a lot of this, but Poison always stood out to me because they're the most successful late bloomer group ever, because they didn't really start getting up there till glam, 80s hair metal glam metal was kind of starting to die out and grunge was starting to take over, because they were still selling out and shit right when that Motley Crue survived because they weren't traditional hair glam metal. They had a darker edge to them that kept them going a little bit longer, but not by much. 90s kind of ate them, but for some reason Poison stayed going, and I think a lot of that is the genuineness, because this album of course has Nothing But a Good Time, Every Rose Has Its Thorn, I mean, in those kind of stuff. And I love in the remake of Mama Don't Dance That song, to name some from there. But man, the biggest thing about the reason why it's an honorable mention is because it's one of the first ones I listened to, and I really loved the tone of the guitars and everything. And it's Every Rose Has Thorn, one of the best like ballads or breakup ballads or whatever you want to call it. One of the best ones because it's so subdued, and it's just such a genuine song. That's the big thing about the group, is that they always feel genuine, especially Bret Michaels with the songwriting and stuff. It's an honorable mention though, because like 5150, I didn't listen to all the songs straight through on repeat, and also to be honest, I never really got their full catalog down. So they were never a group that they were definitely a compilation group for me, not an album group for me, and that's just the way I grew up. That's just the way things aligned. The third one is I'm gonna get a lot of laughs for this. Dark Horse, Nickelback. Man, I know it was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but at that point, Nickelback was considered a decent group. I grew up in high school. Nickelback was solid. They're all the Was it All the Right Reasons album? Or, I forgot it was Right Reasons or Wrong Reasons, because I know there's a track album that's just reverse of that name, so it's a little confusing. But that one and Dark Horse to me are like pinnacle Nickelback work. I mean, some of the stuff before them was definitely more rock heavy. A lot of people love Silver Side Up. I've never listened to that album, so I can't give my 2 cents on that. It's really this and All the Right Reasons, or All the Wrong Reasons, whatever it is. Um, I picked this one over that one because this one I listened to more of the songs, and I actually listened to a lot of the songs in this album. Like, to me, this is when Nickelback. This is peak Nickelback before they became a shell of themselves, as a lot of people would say. I feel like after this album, I felt like they went too pop, and they kind of became sellout-ish a little bit, and they kind of became a joke. But Dark Horse, to me, I feel like this one just kind of had that sweet spot. It was still like rock anthem, but it had the sensibility, a little bit of a pop sensibility to it. And the tracks were all diverse and they blended well together at the same time. And of course, it was produced by Mutt Lange, who's one of the greatest rock producers ever. So that helps a lot. I think the only reason why I have it in honorable mention is because it's Nickelback. I mean, their identity in the whole their fan base has shrunk, and to be honest, not everyone. I don't want to say nobody respects them, but they don't command the same like excitement like they used to. So it's kind of hard for me to make this one of my favorite albums, because it's kind of hard to listen to Nickelback anymore without making it a joke. But that's why that's more in a case of just like their like the in hindsight thing, like, and it's just a case of it not aging well in terms of like they just didn't hold up well as a group. But I still loved like their work before then. I will say that. I have no shame in that. I will always say like they went too far after Dark Horse. They went too far to the pop side of things, and they lost traction. And I haven't listened to really anything from theirs after Dark Horse, really. And so yeah, I do dig so that's why it's an honorable mention. So now top 5. So at number 5 is Kiss Unplugged. This is the acoustic set. I have 2 unplugged ones, 2 very famous ones, and I picked this one from Kiss because one, I actually don't own a lot of Kiss like albums, at least CD form. I have some of the vinyl stuff, but I haven't really listened to a lot to those ones yet. So really, it was really between this and Destroyer and Sonic Boom and Monster, And of course, the newer ones, no, not really. Destroyer was close, but I went with this one because I felt like because I dug the acoustics, and I dug and I know, and this is kind of and that's another thing too, is that for this, even though I don't count compilations, I did count live albums, because even though it is kind of a collection of like greatest hits, it's different renditions of them, so it kind of gets a pass on that. Um, but yeah, Kiss, one of my favorite band. That's no secret. um, I mean, you can say they're not the best band ever. I get that, but they're my favorite. That's just the way I have it. But to say this is my favorite album of theirs, I'm not sure. I think if I had a chance to legit listen to their full catalog, it might change. That's the biggest thing about this list. It could change over time, because there's still albums I haven't really. I mean, there's songs from them I've heard, of course, but not like the album. But yeah, what I liked about this is that so many of their works transferred so well into acoustic, and they did a good a job of, like, I mean, they did some of the popular stuff, but they also focused on the under tracks a lot, which worked great. And I listened to this quite a bit as well. The reason why it's five is also because this isn't something I've played a ton of, really, from their work. This is definitely something that's a little bit more. I mean, I thought about other stuff, because I also have Psycho Circus, and I thought about Psycho Circus, but I don't know. I felt like it wasn't. I don't know. Unplugged Kiss to me just hits a certain way for me at this moment in time for me. So they're at five. Number four is Dragon Force and Human Rampage. Oh man. Now I thought about doing Ultra Beatdown, because I think that album had a little bit more polishness to them. But I haven't, like I said, I haven't listened to all their albums. But I feel like a lot of people, and I think they released a couple newer ones. I have the first one with the new lead singer in it, but the last one or two I haven't got a chance to hear. And the first couple of ones I haven't either. So it's really this Ultra Beatdown and their live albums, the Twilight something live double live out CD thing, and really the newest one, hold on, let me see. Yeah, Twilight Dementia, that's the one. That's what I was thinking. The Power Within. That's the one with the new lead singer. Power Within was good. Ultra Beatdown was technical, but Inhuman Rampage to me, I think, was peak Dragon Force. Like, that album, I listened to a lot of that album. That album was just, man, just so guitar driven. And when you read about them, their influences was like, 80s rock, rare, but video game music. And you can hear that in those songs, like the video game music. And man, and Through the Fire and Flames, I mean, when I grew up, that was like the song for like guitar bragging. If you played it on Guitar Hero, Rock Band, or God, if you could know how to play it in an actual guitar, you're pretty much God on guitar. But yeah, man, but to me, this was like peak Dragon Force. This is like the identity of Dragon Force in a nutshell, is this album. And it's definitely one of my favorites, because of course I grew up with it. I listened to it all the time, and it just, to this day, like Dragon Force's music, they've definitely changed a lot. Like, even after this one, an Ultra Beatdown, you could tell the songs were a bit shorter, and they were starting to slow things down a little bit. So you can argue that their later works are a bit more polished, but man, Inhuman Rampage was just balls to wall, just like insaneness. And I feel like that just I just can't escape it. It's just, to me, that's just peak. That's just Dragon Force identity in a nutshell, for me at least. So yeah, the reason why it's not higher is mostly because I think the biggest reason is because I feel like I haven't listened to all their stuff. And I do feel like if on a given day I could change my mind about the album if I give more listen tos to other stuff. So it's in there, but like I said, I don't think it's their best album on a technical level, so I feel like it could change. Number three, Indestructible from Disturbed. Man, this Disturbed for a bit to me was just like, I listened to so much Disturbed as a kid. I listened to a lot of old stuff, but man, I listened to quite a few. I have quite a few of their albums, but it's no question to me that Indestructible's their best. And I think a lot of it is, I don't know, I think there's just I feel like their energy, tone, and music was at the perfect place in this album, because I feel like their first album I felt like was definitely interesting, but I don't think it was quite blended quite right. I didn't listen to Believe. That's the only Disturbed album I haven't heard like listened to yet. But I know a lot of people don't really go back to that one. 10,000 Fists is a really good one, but I feel like this album was one of those albums where like they just had so many banger tracks in it. Like some of these tracks are just like fire, like literally. And then Asylum was a close one, but I feel like Indestructible was more consistent with the songs, just wanting to listen to them, at least for me. And man, just the holy trilogy of like songs in this, like that's the title track, inside the fire, and of course the night. The night is an awesome. I love that song so much. Such, it's just a good blend right here, because after this one they kind of go like super super dark. I know they released a new album recently. Um, Man, what was I forgot? There was a track. I just had a song of theirs pop in my head just out of nowhere, and I'm trying to remember if it's in Indestructible or not. Oh, Stricken. Stricken. I don't know. It's definitely not in there. I think it was in a different album, but still, man, like it was tricky. But yeah, it's Act 3. It's kind of in the middle because this is definitely their best work. But Disturb as a band, they're not quite up there, and a lot of it is to do that I felt like their consistency has waned a little bit as of late for the last few years. And I don't know. I don't. They're doing a good job with what they're doing, but they're not really. I don't know. They haven't really carried over for me a ton as I became an adult. So they're there, and I do, and that's definitely one of my favorites. But it's not quite higher just because. Well, we'll get to that in a bit. Number two here, man, this was a debate for me, but Avenged Sevenfold self-titled album, Avenged Sevenfold, or otherwise known as their White Album, quote unquote. Man, it was between this and Nightmare. I had a hard time picking between the two. Nightmare is definitely up there, like up there as one of my favorite albums. But the reason why I picked their self-titled one over Nightmare, because here's the thing, I feel like Nightmare to me is their best work at a musical level, but their self-titled one, I picked this one because I felt like this one just was the perfect representation of everything Avenged Sevenfold. Because here's one thing too though. The Nightmare, for how great it is, I don't listen to every track on that album all the time. This one here I do. Like I go straight through and I listen to everything, like, and all these tracks, a good majority of these tracks were hits. This was like a big album. Like I don't think a lot of people realize, especially the newer generation coming, but this album came up, all the tracks were like everywhere. This was like a mega album. And you don't see a lot of those from rock groups anymore, those mega albums. And I think that goes into a whole nother topic, but yeah, I had to go with this one just because it was just so many of those tracks that I listened to all the time. Like this album, man, this is, and Avenged Sevenfold was one of the first like new groups that I was kind of introduced to, current groups at the time at least, that I was introduced to through just variousness, that I really really latched on to. I mean, Disturbed and Dragon Force I did too, but Avenged Sevenfold to me, I mean, they've been the most consistent. Now, granted, also this isn't like my favorite artist ever. Like a lot of these groups, some of these groups are definitely in my tops, but not all of them. That's something to keep in mind with that. But this album to me is just like peak, like Avenged Sevenfold in terms of like who they were, what they were at the time, and what they will be in the future. Um, and Nightmare, they did Nightmare. They kind of stumbled a little bit with Hail to the King. Their newest one I haven't listened to yet. It came out eons ago, and I just haven't. Because the way I grew up, how I grew up was, if you for listening to music, either it's through the radio or you bought a CD. That's just the way it was. I mean, you could get stuff online, but that was always a challenge for me because of internet and whatever. And yeah, I that was kind of it. And of course, when I was younger, I mean, my parents controlled the radio. I didn't make a fuss about it. It was not my place to say what was being playing on the radio. And to be honest, I didn't know any better. And the people, my peers I hung out with, I didn't really hang out with them to the point to know what their music taste was. I mean, the first time I feel like I legit discovered Avenged Sevenfold was during like a school event where music was playing and somebody brought in some Avenged Sevenfold, and I don't know, it just clicked. I don't know how it clicked, but it clicked. But yeah, that one said Waking the Fallen. Like, there's so many Avenged Sevenfold albums I listen to on repeat. But like I said, this one I think just represents their pinnacle work. And not pinnacle work, but I feel like their best representative work. Even though I do think Nightmare is legit their best work. But to have it be my favorite, I don't know. It's tough. But I had to go with this. I mean, if you ask me again tomorrow, I may bludger my brain with Nightmare, but yeah, I listen to that so much. Number one though, my favorite album, right as of this moment, is Nirvana's Nevermind. That one, that album I've listened to so goddamn much on repeat, so straight through. And it's my favorite mostly because I don't know. It clicks with me. Out of all the albums I've talked about, that album clicked with me the best. And I think because it was such a middle album. It represented the rise of, grunge, like in the songwriting, the music was just, I don't know, it just hit me in a way that, I like the tone, the guitars, the time frame. It just hit me in a way that I just couldn't let go of. The Avenged Sevenfold, and the reason why it's number one, a bigger reason too, and not like something like Avenged Sevenfold or whatever. A lot of it is just, I don't know. I think it's tough to say. I mean, and that's the reason why, because here's the thing, Nirvana's Unplugged album is probably one of the best Unplugged stuff ever. But the reason why I went with Kiss over Nirvana's Unplugged was because I don't think their Unplugged album was their best work. I think Nevermind, I always will feel like Nevermind's their best work. And it's a mega album, but I feel like it was the last big mega album changes. In terms of it ushered in the grunge era, and then it I don't think it really fully left. You had Avenged Sevenfold and Disturbed with their own sounds. Dragon Force with their own sound too, but there hasn't been any groups that took in influence. I don't think there's any groups out there that are A7X Disturbed or whatever. It still feels like grunge is still, the influences are still there for anything that's actually rock nowadays, give or take, as far as I know. And that all started with Nirvana, but that's the thing too. That Nevermind album. Another thing too with that Nevermind album was really the first album I also had that I felt was more me. Because a lot of the music I heard till then was either something from my parents or if not from my parents, probably from my peers. The Nevermind album, the Nirvana one, I feel like that was legit the first one that I myself was interested in. And all the other stuff that eventually became what I was interested in, but that always began from somebody else. This one started and ended with me, and I think that's why it's my favorite, because I didn't need help finding it, or connecting with it or anything. It just happened, you know. But yeah, and of course this whole list could change. I could listen to one Kiss, a different Kiss album, or another Avenged Sevenfold Disturbed work or whatever, and all of a sudden it changes everything. Because keep in mind, like I said, a good majority of these things are compilations. You know, there are still a lot of artists that I love that all I've heard was their compilation work. So things can change with this, but for now, it's probably safe to say that this is definitely an official top 5. Now, some of these I think I have talked about before. Like, I know I talked about Nevermind before. That's for sure, but I don't know about the rest of these. So you might see reviews of them later on in the more stripped down format, like you're used to. But I just want to do a little quick top 5, kind of, you know, give some my 2 cents there. Let me think. I think I keep saying this, but I do want to try to do some more album reviews next year. I do enjoy doing them. It's just they're a little bit more work than a typical vlog or vlog, as sometimes I call them. But also like I said prior in other videos, I am gonna probably not put as much focus on them going forward just because of time. So I'm gonna try to find a way to do more next year. I would legit like to do more. And another reason why I'm a little slower at them is because I only have so much to work with in terms of like albums and stuff. I only own so many of them, so it's kind of a balancing act. But yeah, but like I said, those are my top 5. And like I said, it could change anytime. Let me know what your guys' favorite albums are. I'm curious on that. I might hear some stuff. I mean, I'm sure there's some great albums out there that would obviously be in anyone's top list that aren't in mine, mostly just because I haven't listened to them yet. You know, that's really the biggest thing. I mean, yeah, I mean, if I dedicate like a couple months to just listening to different buying some CDs, cassettes, or vinyls, and just listening to like the albums of like the big albums of all these groups, I mean, it could change my top 5, or might even become a top 10 with all of them I listen to. But yeah, like I said, like those are kind of my favorites right now, as of 2022. We'll just say. They're so far, quote unquote. I don't know. But yeah, guys, we're gonna call it good here. Top 5 favorite albums. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. In case you wanted to chat with me and Mike, or me or anyone else at the Campy Company, you don't want to use the YouTube comments section, we do have a couple options. First one is we have a Discord channel. You can find a link to that about page / about section of our channel. We also have a community tab in our channel as well. You can access that anywhere at any time. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the videos, and have a good day.